everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair. I am Michelle Chalfant. Today, I'm speaking with you about owning your reality. There is huge power in owning your reality, and many of us have a hard time doing that, and there are benefits to doing this. So I'm going to talk to you all about that today. But first, before we get started, you can find out more about the show at theadultchair.com. You can join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest. And be sure to request to join the Adult Chair private closed group on Facebook. As you know, this is one of my favorite groups. It is a place where you can learn all about the Adult Chair, and you can post questions and comment and join other like-minded people that are vulnerable, that are ready really to dive deep into their own adult chair and live their best lives. So come join us there. Okay, I'm very excited to announce again, the journaling challenge is upon us. And for those of you that did not join us last year, this happens, I'm going to call it the annual journaling challenge. We're going to do this every year now because it was such a huge success last year. Everybody loved it. It begins November 1st. And you can sign up for this at theadultchair.com/journal. And what happens is, and you remember, you have to sign up for this if you want these journaling prompts, even if you are already on my mailing list. This is a separate mailing list. So make sure you sign up if you want to join. So what happens is, every day you'll get one journaling prompt from me emailed into your inbox. And journaling is just a phenomenal way to go deeper within yourself. For me, it's like getting counseling every day or coaching. And yet we're by ourselves, pen and paper, and we are just diving deep. And the prompts that I have created, these are different from last year, just so you all know. I have 30 new prompts, and they're more than a sentence. This takes me a long time to create these, and it's free. By the way, this is 100% free. I just love helping people to go deeper and find their adult chair, and this will help you, I promise. So these prompts, maybe they're one sentence, maybe they're 4 or 5 sentences, but they are all to take you deeper into yourself. So come join us, theadultchair.com/journal. If you want to join the journaling challenge, you'll have 30 journaling prompts emailed to you from November 1st through November 30th, and sign up is happening right now. Own your reality. So that's what we are talking about today. There is huge power in owning our reality, yet most of us don't live these lives. We don't know how to own our reality. We own and speak up and show up in the world in a way that we think other people want us to show up. So we show up as we think our parents want us to be, or our friends, or our siblings, or our loved ones. We put a mask on and show up in order to cover up our true selves, because I'm sorry to say, this is this puts us very much in the adolescent chair. This egoic part of us thinks that if I am my true self, I will be rejected or judged or shamed or et cetera, fill in the blank. So it's an uncomfortable thing to show up and really be our true self. And that's what we do from our adult chair, is we start to peel away the masks that we are covering ourselves up with, and we start living the true sense of who we are in the world. So living a life without our true self, or our true self that's all covered up, is not only exhausting, because honestly, it takes a lot of energy to cover up who we really are. But eventually, it really does feel like something is missing inside. I hear people say, I feel like something's missing. I don't know what it is, or I feel like I'm living a lie, et cetera, et cetera. It eventually catches up with us. And I find that we start doing a lot of this, even, of course, when we are true adolescents, which would be anywhere after the age of 12 or 13, when we are developing this adolescent chair part. And what happens is we continue to age, but physically speaking, we age. But emotionally speaking, there are aspects of us that stay stuck in that adolescent chair, all covered up, because we think we're going to get rejected if we are our true self. So in case you don't know what I mean by owning your reality, it means take down your blinders, your masks, stop sugarcoating things, strip those things away and look at your life and what's in it and who's in it. Are those people serving you? How you show up in the world, and start owning it. What I say is first start owning it even for yourself, and do it without guilt and shame. Like, let's not fall into, I'm such a bad person because I'm living like this. No, we don't need to fall into the victim about this. It's just learning that it's time for us to start stripping away the lies that we tell ourselves that we think other people want from us, or how we should show up in the world. It's like, it's just not true. We need to start owning this for ourselves because it's freeing. It's empowering. It feels so good. And it's terrifying because with that grip of the adolescent chair, it's like we're super glued there in that chair. And the idea of doing this oftentimes is so, so, so scary. But when we get really clear about our lives and embrace it, it is so powerful. Really, really powerful. Now, of course, I want to remind you, I'm not suggesting to strip everything away in one moment, although it's possible. It is not what I'm suggesting. It would be, and first of all, send our adolescent chair in a total frenzy, which we don't want. Remember, you guys, the ego is here to keep us safe. It is here to protect us and keep us alive. It's not bad. So many people ask me, why do I have this adolescent chair? The problem is our egos have too much energy in them, and oftentimes they're unhealthy egos. So we just want to balance the energy out in there and learn new tools, which we learn in the adult chair, to help heal this part of the ego. So we want to take it slowly and reveal slowly who we really are. So for example, I'm going to give you a few examples here. And again, start owning this for yourself. Take the blinders off and see what's truly in front of you, and stop distorting your reality, because we do that even with ourselves. For example, being out with a group of friends or with whomever, friend, family, it doesn't matter. If you are living with somebody that clearly drinks too much, instead of saying something like, my husband or my wife or my boyfriend, girlfriend, whomever, just gets a little tipsy every night. It's like, is it tipsy, or is it that they're an alcoholic or they have a major drinking problem? Like, let's own it. It's not to throw anybody else under the bus or judge anybody. It's like, we need to own this reality. If they're part of your life, it's part of you. So it's like, we need to own, yes, my husband's an alcoholic, period. And again, say it just with yourself first, and then you start easing. And when you can get really clear within yourself, then you start moving into the world and using your truth and speaking your truth in the world. I know people that one friend has a son that, she'll say, well, my son is just really hormonal and kind of edgy. And I watch what happens with her and her son, and I'm like thinking to myself, he's abusive. Like, when are you going to stop this, or at least own that he's abusive? I have another friend. Her daughter is, oh my goodness, such a brat. And she just doesn't have any boundaries, and she's just not kind to her mother. And I see her with other children. She's becoming not a very nice little girl. However, when her mother is around, she'll just say, oh, she's acting like that because she's overtired. And I finally one day sat down with my friend, just one-on-one, and she said to me, I think I'm creating like this little monster of a child. And I said, okay. And I just listened, and I said, really? And she says, yeah. She said, I make a lot of excuses up. And I said, so what do you think is real? What's true? And she says, I'm just not really great at boundaries with her. And she said, but I make all kinds of excuses for her behavior. And what's true is, I think because she has lack of boundaries, I'm just creating this little monster of a child, and I don't want to do it anymore. And then she started to cry, and I just sat with her, and I said, you know what? I'm so proud of you because you're so brave. I said, and I validated her. I said, I see that too with your child. I said, I see it. I see it. I said, she just needs a few boundaries. Why don't we work on that? She says, oh my God, if you would help me, that would be so great, because I know I don't want this kid. I said, you know what? Just own it. It's okay. Being a mom is hard. Nobody teaches us how to set boundaries. So just own that. And you know what? It's okay to own it even to other people, to your closer friends. And she started doing that. And she said to me, she felt like she lost 25 pounds because she just was free of the lie that she was carrying around. She used to say things like, oh, she missed her nap again. Oh, this, like she'd stand up at the restaurant. Like we were all out to lunch or something. She'd stand up at the chair in the restaurant and scream. And, and we'd all be like, oh my goodness. But what's interesting is once we own our reality and start speaking it, it's like people around you typically stop or slow down on the judgments. Because we all know, like, oh yeah, she just doesn't have great boundaries with her daughter, but she's working on it. And it's almost like people are like, when my friend said this, her friends that were close to her had so much compassion for her. It went from like, oh my God, what is she going to do with her daughter? It's so bad. Like we can't even speak and her daughter's screaming all the time and yada, yada, yada. And then when she owned it and said it to us and said, I just don't know how to set boundaries with my daughter and I feel terrible about it. Michelle's going to help me, blah, blah. Her friends in our circle just were like, oh yeah, it's okay now. It felt like it wasn't as big of a deal anymore because she was getting help and she owned her reality. It was like the secret was out of the bag. And once the truth, as they say, the truth will set you free. It really does. Because there's nothing to talk about. We're like, oh yeah, she needs help with her boundaries, period. Okay. It wasn't even a topic that anyone talked about as much anymore. And she started giving her daughter boundaries. Her daughter turned around. At any rate, that's not even the point of the story. The point of the story is when she spoke it to her friends in her circle, the circle of friends stopped even talking about it. It was crazy, but people talked about it when she was not owning her truth. So own your reality. Again, I'm not saying you have to put this on Facebook or own it with the entire world. Just start really, really small and name it to a very close friend or family member and then a few more people, and you will feel lighter. I promise. It happens every single time. If you all remember the book, it was out a few years ago, Love Warrior by Glennon, Melton, Doyle. I remember her whole beginning, how she became so famous was she did put out on Facebook actually, she used to have a blog and she was really vulnerable in that blog. And oh my gosh, it blew up instantly. And she even said, I felt so free writing this and putting it out there. I didn't want to hide behind my masks anymore. And she speaks about this in her books, The Love Warrior and then Carry On Warrior. I mean, phenomenal books. She's putting her whole life out there. And it's amazing what happens when we are real and take those masks off. I have a couple more examples for you guys because I think the examples are important. I had a client last week that I love, and she was talking about how much, she's always talked about how much she and her husband love the beach and really want to move. And they went down and they spent a few weeks down at the beach and they were trying to find property and they found some lovely properties and she was so excited. But over the few weeks that she was looking and talking to friends and family about moving down to the beach, a lot of people started saying, oh my gosh, I can't wait till you move. I'm going to come down and spend a weekend or a week, or I'm going to spend the month of January with you when it's cold, or I'm going to spend, on and on and on. So she was telling me this. So she went from feeling so excited about moving to then saying to me, you see, I can never move now. And I said, come again? Why can't you move? And she said, well, because all these people are going to come and visit me. And you know me, she said, I don't do well with that. So I really, really relate to her because she's not only an empath, but an introvert. And we recharge being alone. So when we start having lots of company day after day, let alone a month, and she had people that were like, oh yes, I will be there in winter when it's cold. I would love to come. I'll just stay with you guys for a month. You're going to get an extra bedroom. It'll be perfect. So instead of speaking her reality and owning her reality and speaking her truth, she was ready to put her dream not even on hold, but just abandon the whole dream And I'm telling you, I've known her for a year or so now. And every time she comes in, not every time, but a lot of times she'll say, I just wish I could move to the beach. And now that her reality is almost here, because she was afraid to speak up for herself, she's ready to abandon her whole dream. And I said, well, why don't you tell people they can't stay so long? And she said, which this word again is used, I think, misused often. And she said, I would feel really guilty because they would be mad at me. And I said, well, hold on. It really depends on how we share our reality. I'm not asking or inviting you to say something like, listen, bitch, you're not coming for a month. I said, in fact, we're not going to make it about anybody but you. So I gave her an example of what she could say to her friends and family that want to come. And the way it was sounding, it's like, gosh, people wanted to come spend every week with her. And she just loves to walk the beach, and she loves her alone time, which I totally get. I love my alone time too. So I understood completely where she was coming from, but I did offer her a suggestion. I shared with my client, this has to be about you. I said, let's pull your energy back to you, and you're the focus. Because remember in another podcast I did, I said it's all about me, or maybe I called it all about you. I'll put it in the show notes. But this is so important because she's abandoning her dream based on people outside of herself. I said, let's make a boundary statement for you that you can use with anyone that says they want to come stay with you when you move to the beach. I said, what if you said something like, thank you so much, Amy. I would love to have you come down to the beach and stay. We've had so many people say that they want to come down and stay. And you know what that does to me, don't you? And Amy might say, no, I don't know what that does to you. Well, you know that I am an introvert. Do you know what that means? Well, no, I don't know what that means. Most people don't know. And what it means is I recharge being alone. So you wouldn't believe how overwhelmed it makes me and I would say it even like this with a chuckle in my voice. You wouldn't believe how overwhelmed it makes me to hear that so many people want to come. So I know that when we move, I'm going to have to be really mindful about having too many people stay. So there's a lovely hotel that's less than a mile away, and it's called the blah, blah, blah hotel. And I think what I'm going to have people do is have them maybe stay there because I want to be able to see people and enjoy my time with them. And it'd be so much better for me to have people just stay at the hotel because I get so drained. It has nothing to do with who's coming. Everybody drains me. It's just how I was made. It's how I'm set up. And I know this about me after all these years. So would love to have you come. If you want to stay at the Marriott around the corner, that would be fantastic. And I'll tell you the weekends that I'm available. And then I shared with my client, I said, you don't have to have people every weekend, for God's sake. I said, just let them know this would be a good weekend and this would be a good weekend. And that might be, 6 months apart. I said, this is you. This is your life. This is your home. You are not being mean. You're simply taking care of yourself. And people think that is such a hard thing to do. It's these boundaries. We have a hard time sharing our reality with people, especially when it means that there's a boundary involved. But so if she shared it in a lovely way and even laughing and saying, well, you know me, I can't handle a lot of people. And it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's friend or family, I just get drained. And I remember I'd share this on another show a while ago. I had the same exact issue. I am in bed by, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night because I get up so early in the morning. And I'm definitely, as far as the introverts go, I lean a little bit more in that direction. I like to be with people, but I also need my alone time. So when we go out with friends, I used to say for many years, I would come up with excuses why I could not go. I would lie. I would just say, no, I can't go because I have other plans or I've got this going on or that going on. But what I learned to do years ago was to start speaking my truth and owning my reality, which is I get really drained. By 9:30, 10 o'clock, I usually go to bed. So when you suggest going out at night at 9 o'clock, that is exhausting. I don't want to eat dinner at 9 or 8. I want to eat dinner at 6, maybe 6:30. But I don't go out late because I don't like to stay out late. And I started owning that and sharing that with people when they would say, hey, let's go out. And I'm not a giant drinker. So I don't want to go out and drink all night. That's not fun for me. So I started sharing that with people. So when they'd invite me out, I'd be like, yes, I'd love to come, but I'm going to leave around 9:30, 10 at the latest. Oh, okay. Well, why is that? Well, it just drains me. Like if I'm around big, giant crowds, I just get really drained easily. So I need to come home early. Maybe I can push till 10:30. I'm going to see how I feel, but I just, if I'm exhausted, I'm leaving. I just want to tell you up front. And they're like, oh, so there's no pushback. When I owned my reality, people stopped pushing back. I found when I would tell these little white lies and excuses, I'd have all these excuses to get out of going out. Well, I can't because my son's sick, or I've got other people, or I've got a busy morning. People push back, push back, push back. Again, sharing my truth and my reality was so freeing. I felt like I'd lost all this weight. And I thought, oh, wow, I just feel free. It feels so good to just be me and speak my truth. Okay, so here's the thing with owning our reality. We can own it from our adolescent chair with all kinds of excuses and apologies like I was doing in the past when I was making up little white lies in order to please everybody, and I still wanted to get invited, but I really didn't, and I was all over the place. I didn't know what was real because I was like, do you want to go out, Michelle, or do you not want to go out? No, I really don't want to leave the house at 9:30, 10 o'clock to go out at night. Then just say it. And I started doing that. I'm telling you, so freeing. That was me doing it from my adult. So doing it from the adolescent, that is what I mean by it's draining, it's exhausting. I was covering up. I didn't want people to laugh at me and think I was ridiculous because I had to be home so early or making fun of me. And they did. Oh, there's Michelle. She's always so tired. I'm like, yeah. Now when I own it, I go, yes, I am. You guys sleep in. I don't sleep in. I'm up at 5 or 6 in the morning. I'm exhausted by 10 o'clock at night. I don't sleep in. I have a hard time sleeping in. So yes, I am. So I started yesing people when they would make fun of me, and I owned it from this very adult perspective. It was fact for me. Yes, I get tired. No, I don't want to go out. I love you guys. I do not want to go out that late. So again, we can say the same thing from our adolescent chair, and it's got an excuse and an apology built in this very different energy than a very solid energy coming from my healthy adult. In my adult chair, I am fact and truth, and I'm solid. So when we own our reality, there are some benefits. And I'm going to go over 4 main benefits for owning your reality. Number 1, we are better at setting boundaries. It's because we are solid in our truth and feel guilty or shamed about nothing. Nothing. Just like me. I was able to set a boundary the more that when I stepped into myself and I said, you know what? I just don't like to go out that late, period. There's nothing wrong with it. They all like to go out late. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. It's just what I prefer. Who cares? I'm different. Not everyone on the planet is supposed to be exactly the same. So when I owned my reality for myself, I was then able to set a boundary and tell my friends that I need to be home at a certain time. That's a boundary. That's a boundary. So when we own our reality, boundaries become easier. This is why I say, own it for yourself first. What are you hiding? What are the masks that you're hiding behind? So just start peeling those away and own it. The other thing it does is it increases our confidence. That's number 2. We actually become less afraid of life because we're more solid within ourselves. When we own our reality, it fills us up energetically in that adult chair, because we feel more solid in who we are and confidence improves. In addition to confidence, number 3 is self-esteem raises. So when I stop telling myself lies and own my reality, I start feeling good about myself. Just like me with going out. It's like, I just don't want to do it. And we begin feeling things like, I believe in myself and I believe in who I am. And we just feel better and better about ourselves. It just starts happening naturally. It's like an indirect way to raise self-esteem and our confidence, just owning who we are. The fourth one is it gives us freedom. I think about that George Michael song, Freedom. There's a huge freedom in telling the truth. I'm not saying to find your truth and put it on Facebook again, but you can if you want to. But it really does start with you and owning your reality. And you will find you become more powerful or empowered, okay, when you own your reality. It just feels good. So I'm going to challenge all of you to share something within your reality that you have been hiding from the world and even yourself. Share it with one person. And then I would love to hear a comment on this. If you see this on Facebook or on Instagram, let me know how you felt after you shared that reality. And of course, we want to pick someone the first time we do this that is safe and that's not going to challenge us, and just share it. Okay? But here's what's cool. Even if they challenge you, if you really are owning it and you're clear, it's not going to bother you. For example, when I was saying to people, I don't want to go out late anymore, of course, a few people were like, oh, come on. You're not that old. You should be able to go out. And I just sat there and I was so clear. That was where the boundary came up. I was like, I know I'm not that old. I just don't want to. That's my adult. I was like, boom, period, end of story. There is nothing to hide behind, nothing to feel embarrassed about. It's like, nope, don't want to. So even when we're challenged then, there's this freedom to speak up and set that boundary. And again, we're going to feel lighter when we do this. So I challenge you to do this. Just one thing that people don't know about you, I would love to hear about it. Let me know on Instagram or on Facebook how, first of all, if you want to share what you shared, that's great, but how people reacted to that and how it felt for you would be so cool to hear about. So I encourage all of you to look inside and just see, what are you hiding? What masks are you putting over something that you might feel embarrassed about or ashamed about? Because it's just not necessary. So take a look at it and see if you can see it through a different lens or a different perspective, or it will change. Just start playing around with the thing that you are really embarrassed by and that you feel like you have to hide or that you don't want to see the truth about. Okay? Remember, we want so badly, this is the adolescent chair, to be acceptable by others. So we act and show up as we think they want us to be like, which is crazy when you think about this. We show up in order to be liked by people outside of us. So just watch that. Just become mindful of it. And this is never about, by the way, when I share everything on these podcasts, it's never about judging yourself. It's about making another choice. So if you're in judgment about this, stop it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you're covering something up, just climb into your adult and start owning it. Okay? There's nothing to feel bad about. Do not blame yourself or anyone else. No victim. We're going to step in the adult. Find the empowerment in that adult chair. Okay? You got to think about it like this. When you show up as yourself, you're much more acceptable and real. And if people don't accept you for who you are, and with all of your history and all of your warts and blemishes and everything else, then perhaps they're not meant to be in your life any longer. So remember the guilt that we talked about. This is my last point for you all. Remember, when we feel guilty about sharing our reality because of how it's going to sound to someone else, I'm not saying to go up to someone else and say to them, you're an alcoholic and you have a big drinking problem. That's not what I'm saying to do. I'm inviting you to own it for yourself if you are not owning it. Own it for yourself first. And if you need to tell a close friend or family member, share it with them. But the guilt was about speaking up, like my client getting that beach house. If you have a scenario like that, where you're going to change who you are again, she was changing who she is and who she and what she wanted for someone else, and then felt guilty about doing that, speaking up for herself. That's the guilt. The guilt I want you to examine. Again, if I hurt you, I hope that I feel guilty. Guilt is a healthy emotion. It's like, oh, so then it causes me to go deep inside and say, I don't want to do that again. That was not a very nice thing to do. Let me go ahead and change my behavior. But if I'm sharing my reality, there is no guilt there at all. Okay. So remember what I always say, again, driving this point home about boundaries. If you don't teach others who you are and how you want to be treated, who will? So we got to learn, number one, how to own the reality, and then we start speaking it, and that's where these boundaries come from. And they will be easy, I promise you. The boundaries start to come the more we own who we are. It's all in that adult chair. It starts happening automatically. Remember, this is a spiritual process. This is not a linear process. So there's an energy in owning who you are. And then quite naturally, the boundaries just come. So that's all I've got for you guys today. This was a delightful conversation. This is one of my favorite topics, owning your reality. And I'm going to put in the show notes the number of that podcast, if you want to go listen to that other one I referenced, which is number 103. It's all about you. It is. That is one of the things I say to my clients all the time. I say, this is your new mantra. Which, if I'm talking to a client, I'll just say, it's all about me. It's all about me. And I want them to own that. And I'm going to say that to you guys. So it's number 103. It's called It's All About You. And if there's ever a podcast that you want to find, you can go to my website, theadultchair.com, and there's a search bar. So if you have a topic that you're thinking of, like I'd like to learn more about whatever, teenage parenting, then go put that in the search bar and you'll be amazed how many podcasts pop up, because I try to cover just about every topic that we can think of. So there's a search bar at theadultchair.com. So, okay. So I hope that you've enjoyed this, everyone. And I have, as always, enjoyed spending this time with you today. I have a great book recommendation, so hang on, and you can get that in a moment from Audible. But for now, I will see you next week seated right here in the adult chair. And do not forget about the journaling challenge at theadultchair.com/journal. Take care, everybody. I'll see you next week. Well, I have a great book for you today. And for listeners of The Adult Chair, Audible is offering a free audiobook. Just go to audibletrial.com/theadultchair. And the book that I loved when I was doing some research on what would be in line with this, of course, there are so many, but this one really resonated with me. And I was really impressed with it. It's called Reinventing Yourself: How to Become the Person You've Always Wanted to Be, by Steve Chandler. I loved this, and you will learn numerous techniques for breaking down negative barriers and letting go of the pessimistic thoughts that prevent you from fulfilling or even allowing yourself to conceive of your goals and dreams. I really, really loved that. And of course, I mentioned Glennon Doyle's books on here too, and both of those actually would be helpful to remove those masks. So if you're interested in either of those, you can get any book, honestly, you guys. You don't have to get the one that I am talking about right now, but any book. If you want to try Audible, it's free. But you have to go to www.audibletrial.com/theadultchair, and you can get it for free. So that's that. I will see you next week, everybody.